Welcome back, colleagues. I hope there were fruitful engagements in the primary school and the high school breakaway rooms, and I am sure that the presentations that were made to reflect on specific data points was helpful to the session, particularly in terms of aligning the data points to the implementation of Circular D3. So just for a wrap up, in terms of what was said during the morning, we began with the Johannesburg West District Director, who emphasized the data gathering processes in his district and how the district uses the dashboard to maintain their #1 position as the best district in the country. He also emphasized the need to analyze and interpret the data so that it informs reporting, and also that monitoring and the review of the data that is interpreted and the implementation of strategies is monitored. He also mentioned a very, very good point in terms of the frontline workers at school level utilizing the data. And at district level, provincial level, is that there should be continuous upskilling of officials in terms of the use of the dashboard. We know that there are weekly webinars that you can go onto the website and register for and attend, and it gives you insights of the different data points of the dashboard and how to use the dashboard holistically. And we know that if you are in school and you can't attend it either on the Thursday or the Friday, that if you do register for the webinar, you still get the PowerPoint presentation, you still get the video recording. So at the leisure of your convenience, you can watch the webinar. From Ma'am Smith from DBE, she began her presentation stating that when they drafted and reviewed the circular, a lot of things went into focus, and one of the guiding principles was the valuable insights that they received from provinces in terms of reviewing the circular. And I think from today's interaction, there might be a further review of the circular based on the questions that were asked. But she also referred us to the legislative framework in terms of sections 16A and 58B of SASA, as well as Chapter 2, Section 29(1) of the Constitution of South Africa, the Employment of Educators Act, even the National Policy on Whole School Evaluation, the National Education Policy Act, and she also took us through the importance of the completion of an APIP and the steps to be taken in terms of schools compiling the document and utilizing the document effectively, as well as the roles and responsibilities of education officials, whether at school level, at district level, or provincial level. It was also highlighted that in terms of the interpretation of the circular, as much as quantitative results are required, the policy or the circular emphasizes the need to improve quality education by improving the qualitative pass rates at school level. And even with the revised circular from D1 2014 to D2 of 2017 to D3 of 2023, and even as amended in 2024, it showed that underperforming secondary schools as well as chronic underperforming schools in the country had decreased from 2022 to 2024, even though the pass rate percentage was increased by 5%, and the bachelor pass rate remained at 30% without the diploma pass rate of 25%. So what is it saying again? It's saying that it's emphasizing the qualitative need to improve results at school level. With regard to the criteria of identifying underperforming schools, she went into detail to mention how a secondary school, a combined school, a primary school, and a chronic underperforming school identified as underperforming. And she also highlighted that when it comes to grade 6, it is the LALT that is considered. Even if it's a dual medium school, there was a question where if you have two LALTs, as long as one of the LALTs are underperforming, the school is deemed underperforming. And it's we also had the question of the wording "and" in the circular, which was confusing to primary schools to say LALT and maths. But in her presentation, she was clear to say that either or, if the LALT or the maths in grade 6 is not meeting the criteria, that school is underperforming. And I think that's where DBE has noted the need to maybe review that specific sentence. There was also an inclusion of LSEN schools, because the circular speaks of public schools, but not public ordinary schools. So the LSEN schools are also identified as underperforming if they don't meet the criteria as stipulated in the circular. But clarity was also given to say, from an inclusive education directorate point of view, there should be support to these schools. And then the challenge was also that when it comes to curriculum support, there's a lack of curriculum support to these LSEN schools when they are deemed underperforming. And I think these are the notes that the DBE is taking into consideration so that they can table it at their meetings at national level, so that we can improve and find a way forward. Then when it comes to the top performing schools, we note that even in the circular, section 8811 states that top performing schools are seen as national assets, and they can be used positively to support the underperforming schools. She gave different ideas on how to utilize the good practices of these schools by pairing them in terms of gaining additional support, encouraging and enforcing a culture of sharing resources. Remember, this is when she says pairing them, she doesn't necessarily mean the official twinning of schools. So we're not talking about the reorganization of schools. We are talking about an informal agreement and interaction and collaboration between an underperforming school and a top performing school. Also by establishing mechanisms for coaching and mentoring educators and establishing professional communities of learning. So we know that PLCs is something that we are striving to push nationally. Then she mentioned consequence management. When it comes to consequence management, instruments that can be used to hold accountable officials who are implicated in underperformance, she mentioned 3 specific documents: Section 16 of SASA, Section 16 and Schedule 1 of the Employment of Education Act of 1998, and Schedule 8 of the Labor Relations Act 66 of 1995. She then moved on to the key changes and was very specific to say that when the circular was revised from D1 of 2014 right through to the amended D3 of 2023, she was specific to indicate the key changes that were made with respect to primary schools and secondary schools in terms of identifying them as being underperforming. And she also mentioned the misperception of primary schools in terms of provinces using the subject average for maths and LALT instead of the percentage of learners performing at level 4 and above. And when it came to a secondary school, she clarified that in order to calculate the bachelor pass rate at the institution, it should be the number of bachelor passes achieved divided by the number of learners that wrote times 100, and not the number of bachelor passes achieved divided by the total number of learners enrolled in grade 12. And one specific point from that slide, the slides will be shared with all colleagues that registered. But when it came to the underperforming schools, the chronically underperforming schools, she made mention that even though the circular was amended and changed all through the years, a school is still deemed as chronically underperforming if it was underperforming at the 65% pass rate threshold in 2022, and it was then identified at the 70% threshold in 2023 and 2024. So it's not to say that you were underperforming in 2022 because you didn't meet the 65% threshold, and now you met the 70% in 2023, so you are not underperforming and it starts afresh. It's not. She clarified that to say that you are still underperforming even though the percentage in terms of the pass rate, the minimum requirement changed by 5%. When it came to contents that what education officials should be doing now, she mentioned that the contents of the circular, and I'm hoping that from this session, the important part is that the contents of the amended circular needs to be thoroughly mediated at all levels, and it needs to be minuted, and there needs to be an attendance register with detailed minutes. And part of the induction of new officials, especially at school level, they need to be exposed to the circular in order to conduct their work and to explain that even though it's only grade 6 and grade 12 that are affected, but it should be a collaborative effort by all educators at all grades in all subjects to maintain quality results across the institution. And she also mentioned that challenges are identified, but when it comes to an APIP, for example, it's a working document, and it needs to be, the implementation of strategies needs to be reviewed. You need to monitor, you need to review, and you need to change where you need to change. We're coming towards the end of an academic year. Matric learners are already writing their prelims. Grade 6 learners are about to start their test series, etc. So, and it's their only opportunity. Remember, with grade 6, it's SBA, which is 80% of the year mark. And it's important that they do well now, especially in term 3. It's their final opportunity to boost that year mark. Then she moved on to indicate that from a DBE point of view, there are specific key milestones and timeframes that they work with, and reporting needs to be done at all levels so that everybody up to the minister knows the position of the education framework and the position of each province come the beginning of the next academic year. And it was also mentioned, IK, that we work, when we identify underperforming schools, we do not use the financial year, we use the academic year. And then just to stress again on some of the questions that was asked, why grade 6 and why LOLT and Maths, it was explained to say that it's based on the international and national studies that are taken, where LOLT and Maths are the subjects that are included in your PEARLs and your SATMAT and your TIMS, etc. So from my side, that is the wrap up. Thank you very much to everyone that is in the session. Thank you to all the presenters. I really appreciate your participation. That's it from me. Thank you, IK.
Thank you so much, Trishen. I think it's very important that, we have stayed this hours, and I think it's very important that we actually put this in the way we've put it to, explaining the circular, breaking away into our different school, primary and high school, understanding the implementation. It's not just understanding the circular, you need to also implement it. And also, what do we need to start doing? And that's what Trishen covered, right? And he said something very important, that we need to start, what's that word that you used? Sorry? Mediating, exactly. That is a very strong word. We need to start mediating the circular at our different levels, primary, high school, so we further understand what the circular is talking about. And colleagues, we're going to also, discuss from our part, and then we're going to be reaching out to our officials in DBE. We want to really thank them. We want to thank the Johannesburg West District Director and all the speakers, right? thank you so much. I think this session will not be successful without each and every one of you.